Okay, as I was saying, you talked about what I'm looking to get out of the groups. I'm not expecting every one of these to be a presentation where we go through things, but also having additional speakers come in and talk to specific topics. Um, One of the topics I was thinking about is bringing lenders on. I've got a couple lenders that I think would enjoy getting on this and talking about what they do and giving you options as far as that's concerned. And the other one is, which I'll talk to you a little later on, is something more focused on BHAGs or big, hairy, audacious goals and how to accomplish that. And I'll get a little more in detail on that once we get into the presentation. But let's go ahead and get into the presentation and I can go through that. Since the group is kind of small, keep it kind of informal. And if you have questions that we're going through, just stop me and we can answer those. Okay, hold on a second. Okay. What this presentation is going to be about is how to do big deals to achieve your big, hairy, audacious goals, which another word for that is BHAG. And this presentation, the first one to get us started, was gratefully prepared by Mike Lee's group, which is NASA Investments Academy, and it's also part of a networking group and a training group that I'm a part of. So first of all, I want to start off with just introducing myself. Just a little bit about me. I grew up in Dayton, Ohio. After that, I went to the University of Cincinnati for the period of time, and then ended up graduating with an aerospace engineering degree. After that, I went to work for a company called SDRC in Cincinnati. Did computer aided design, CAD CAM, CAE, and as a part of that, I started off on the sales side for roughly a year or so, or more than that. Then I went over to customer support, and then I went to implementation support, which is more of a consulting role for the company. And one of the best experiences I had there was working with Xerox, helping them implement their computer aided design CAD system and to help them work through their work processes for that. After that, I went to Washington, D.C. to work a job there through SDRC and ended up leaving there and moving to a couple different companies, but ended up winding up at Booz Allen Hamilton in Washington, D.C. Really, it's in Falls Church, but most people know Washington, D.C. And there, what I was able to do was to work on software development projects as a project manager and also to do management consulting for a couple of clients too as well. Got a mixture of both while I was there. And while I was there, I ended up getting my MBA from Virginia Tech, more to round out my skills and to document some of the things that I had already known from being in space. Uh, at that time, while I was getting my MBA, my father happened to pass away, and he left us a four lot mobile home park and a single family rental that I had to manage as a part of that. So that's where the initial part of me getting into real estate more seriously started. After that, I ended up moving out here where I'm currently today, and that's in Beaufort, South Carolina. And if you don't know where that is, it's about 45 minutes from Hilton Head, South Carolina, and about an hour and 15 from Charleston. And it's kind of in the middle and on the coast. So it kind of gives you an idea where it is. Most people know Parris Island, South Carolina, where the Marine Corps trains, and it's in the same town. So as I've been here, we actually ended up selling the mobile home park, and so I had some money that I needed to deploy. So I was looking at different options as to what I could do and what I could invest in. I looked at single family homes, crypto, stocks, and also a couple of other things. Single family homes, where I said that as well. And I invested in those things, but I more heavily moved towards multifamily properties because there's a lot of win-win relationship between the investor and the operator. Plus, it also had the ability to be more recession resistant than some of the other things that I was looking at. And I was able to get into a deal this year that closed just closed, and it was around August 10th. And I'm a co-GP on that deal and it's a 65 unit apartment deal in Charlotte, North Carolina. So that's a little bit about me. As I explained before, I'm part of a mastermind group that I just joined called the Big Deal Mastermind. and they had done over about $4 million worth of apartment and hotel deals. So I'm glad to be a part of that and get deal with some of the people who have experience in those areas as well. So let's talk about big deals. So why big deals are easier? We'll talk about how you can do big deals and how you can do big deals fast. We're gonna go into each one of those and talk about each one of those separately. So why big deals are easier? Well, it comes down to that they're easier to raise capital for than a single family home or other things, because of the fact that you can raise money for them and invest in them probably a little easier than you would a single family home, because the single family home is looking more at your own personal assets as opposed to what you can bring to the table and who can guarantee the loan, which we'll get into that a little further. Talks about easier to get bank financing because they're not looking at you, they're looking at the asset as a whole, and as an investment on their side too as well, is giving you the loan. And also they're easier to manage. Second. Okay. Skipping over it. So why are big deals easier to raise? Again, talk about this. The bank know and accept that you need to raise the down payment from private investors, which is different than you're dealing with a single family home. They know that you're going to be investing it for other people, and this is what we call OPM, other people's money, and that's what you're going to raise it for. There's a process that is used to go after these bigger deals and to invest together as a whole, and that process is called syndication. And essentially, what that is that it's a governed by the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and it has specific steps and things you can do to bring people into deals. But it's a way to bring multiple different people into deals, and I'll have all the money go against that one particular deal. And why are big deals easier to finance? Again, because the bank considers the property's income more than your personal income, which is what I was talking about. They look at it as an investment on their side. Also, why they're easy to do, because when you have larger deal, that means you have larger income or net operating income coming from those deals, and it makes it easier to afford having people to manage those properties, like a property manager, and to also pay for people who are going to be the asset manager who's going to be managing that too as well, and also still be able to pay out the investors their amount of money that they need as a part of the deal too as well. So and another thing is too, is with these things, is we also always say you don't have to deal with tenants, toilets, and trash, because you don't have to actually manage it. You have a property manager who's doing that, and you're managing the property manager. So how can you do big deals? There's a couple things you need to look at as an overview, and I'm going to go into each one of these, so I'm not going to read these off to you. I'll talk about them as we get into them, but each of them is equally as important. So first one, you have to stop your limited thinking. I always say the first thing you have to do before getting in any deal is you have to deal with your mindset. The mindset that you can't get into a larger deal that may be 20, 30, 40 million and has maybe a apartment complex that may have 100 to 200 doors or so, or maybe even more. You can do that. The only thing you need to do is figure out where you're going to find the money from. And I was talking about before, you can get that from other people's money or OPM. So the first of all is, like I said, you have to get rid of these limiting beliefs that you have, and you have to realize that someone has what you're looking for. The next thing you need to do is to get educated. And I can talk about this from personal experience. When I started back in August of 2022, this past year, that was the first thing I did, was to get educated. I spent better part of 4 to 5 months reading material, getting everything I could get my hands on, and also getting into some networking groups to start to learn there too as well. So I get more of the practical side of it. But that also helps you to learn, like it says here, the terminology of big deals. And I also got into underwriting too as well on some of the deals that I was looking at. Some of them were just for practice, but you need to do that so that you can understand how these deals work. What you need to do is learn how to raise OPM. And again, talking from personal experience, you need to understand how you go about doing that. Raising money is a specific skill set that has its own designation. When you look at going after properties, or looking at how the organization is structured. When you look at going after these deals, there's three main areas: acquisitions, uh, asset management, and capital raising. Those are basically three. Any of the roles can kind of fall within any of those three. But capital raising is something that is a specific skill set that someone mainly focuses on. But that doesn't mean that in the deal, if you're doing the underwriting or looking at the deal and evaluating, that you won't have to raise money too as well. It just won't be your main focus. What about network? To me, this is one of the most important things you need to do, is to build your network. I started with my network by building it with other syndicators, and so I could understand a little bit more about what they're doing and actually being able to get into a deal as well. And I probably did that for 5-6 months, in addition to educating myself. So what you need to do is to surround yourself with people who are investing in apartment holding deals, which I did. You also, and again, what to say about your net worth is the average of about 5 people you hang around with. One of the things is, in the mastermind that I'm currently in, people are doing big deals and have big goals. So I'm putting myself in that situation so that I can grow just as fast as I can. So step 5, execute. I usually say ruthless execution. Once you have your plan and figured out what you want to do, you want to go after it 100%. And again, one of those things you can do is analyze at least one deal a day, put at least one social media post. I'm still working on that. I do about 5 a week, but that should be sufficient for what you need. And then you also need to try to talk to new people each day. What I've done as far as getting in that is there's networking groups that are out there where people get together who are experienced and some who aren't experienced in real estate and commercial real estate. And I go to those probably 3 days a week. I have one I go to on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Plus I go to other training courses during the week too as well. So just gives you an idea of what you can do as far as the execution side is concerned. And that's it. Do you have any questions or have any feedback? Stop sharing my
Yeah, I was going
screen.
to ask a question about the bank's willingness to do bigger deals. Is that because the collateral on a bigger deal is probably more attractive to the bank than single family homes? Because if something happens and that transaction is defaulted upon, the bank knows that that big deal investment that the group made is in that huge building or structure, and they're able to use that as collateral. Is that right? Part of it?
Well, I look at it more from the side of it. They're looking at it as a business, and what you have is, if something happens and you default in some way, shape, or form, they still have the people in the building who are renting, who are still
Okay,
paying their
got it.
rents for that particular asset. Whereas the smaller the deal is, you have less, well, I guess, less points of failure in that case. So if somebody doesn't pay, then there's nobody to pay the mortgage. The other side of that too, as well, and which I failed to mention in the middle of this, was that when you're dealing with bigger deals, you also have to remember, and I think it's one of the most important things, is that the bank is going to ask for something called a key principal. Basically, that's the person who's going to guarantee the loan. So to get these loans we're talking about that are 10, 20 million or so, or above for these bigger deals, you need to find somebody who has a net worth or liquid assets to be able to cover that.
Got it. Thanks.
I think I saw another question.
Yeah, I had a question, Charles.
Yeah.
Yeah, how you doing? It's Keith Crockett. I'm
Oh, hey.
asking, hey, in terms of the people you're raising your money from, isn't that a breakdown of accredited investors, regular Joe investors, and people off the street type? Can you give some feedback as to how you go about doing that in terms of raising the
Yeah.
money?
Well, I'll give you a little bit more than that. Is when you're investing money, there's several different ways, but the most prominent ones are used to, I think it's Reg D if I remember right. But there's a 506C and a 506B when you raise money through that. I usually like to think of 506B as 506B as in buddy. So you can think of it as really friends and family that you're raising money from. But I wouldn't look at it as just being friends and family, because you basically have to have a substantive relationship with the person that you're raising money from, and you can't advertise. Now, a lot of people, what they do is they set up a structure where they set up a process where they can get to know somebody over a period of time, and once they get to know them, know what they're investing in, know their financial background, know what just basically that what their experience is investing, and what they have available to invest. Then at that point they can bring them into the deal on a 506B, even if they aren't a friend and family person. On the 506C is where that's when you deal with accredited investors, and to look at the breakdown between the two. And accredited investor by SEC guidelines is anyone who makes over 200K a year or 300K with a spouse or partner, and has $1 million in assets outside of their primary home. And that's what the accredited investor is. Anything outside of that is a non-accredited or a sophisticated investor, and it's up to you to make sure that you figure out if the person is a sophisticated investor based upon what I explained earlier.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Does
Cool.
that make sense?
So basically, anybody could say they're an accredited investor, but it's the proof of the pudding, so to speak, would be on you as the raiser to verify that, or
Well, yeah, on a 506C is where you have to verify that the person actually is an accredited investor. And you can
right,
either do that. A lot of people do it, they do it themselves and they have a process for it. Or you can, another way they can do it is you can have a attorney or an accountant or somebody knows, or a financial planner, or somebody knows something about your finances, basically put something together saying that you're accredited, and they can send that in. The other people, what they do is they have to do it through a third party, where a third party actually verifies that, and the person will send the information to that third party, and they'll verify that they're an accredited investor. On the 506B side, there's no need to do that, because the SEC doesn't require you to do the checks on, at least from what I remember, don't require the checks on whether someone's accredited or not accredited. But but you need to do it, because on a 506B, I think the number is 35. You can only have 35 accredited investors. I mean, non-accredited investors in your deal,
yeah,
and all the rest have to be accredited.
okay,
So,
good stuff.
because we ran into the deal that we were looking at, is we went back and had to look at that to make sure that we had only 35 non-accredited investors, because the thing is that if you have too many of them and you're accounting on those funds for your deal, you could be in real trouble when it comes to closing time.
Right, yeah, okay.
Stop sharing real quick. Any other questions? Couldn't have been that straightforward.
If nobody else is asking, I'm gonna ask. Could you share a little bit how you actually acquired the 65 unit? I know you can't get deep down and dirty with it, but just on the surface level, the process. So you acquired the OM offering memorandum and did the analysis from there, and kind of what happened after that.
Though, see, the thing is, on that one, I came in a little bit later into the deal after the analysis had already been done, and looking to help. So I came in and helped with the raise, and also came in on the asset management side. So I didn't have to worry about dealing with the upfront, which would normally be taking a look at the asset, making sure that the numbers work out as far as on your underwriting, and then making sure that you can actually get the funds to close on the deal before the time period's ended. People have different opinions on it, but my opinion is you need the money first, and then you can worry about the deal. Because I haven't seen it work out where I think it's scary to go into it and have a deal and have all the paperwork signed, the LOI signed, and then have a purchase agreement signed, and then you're on the clock to raise money in a 60 to 90-day period of time, which is typical, to get all the funds in, not knowing that you have them or not. I don't want to do that scrambling. So what I do is talk to people about getting a soft commitment from them of how much money they think they can invest, and bring them deals that match what they're looking for. So I have an idea of what I could potentially raise.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense.
Something it's not well if there's no other questions, you can still come back to ask questions, but I want to talk to you guys about this. Is the presentation was about BHAGs, or big hairy audacious goals. The next one, when we get together, I have a friend who wrote a book about essentially about that. It's just kind of coincidence that it ended up being the presentation that they provided. But essentially what it's about is setting big, hairy, audacious goals, how you define what those should be, and even if you want to go after those, which is, I think, is a key critical point too as well. And then kind of helps you understand how you set them and how you achieve them. And in his book, his name's Von Mickle, and I'm looking to have him come in on the next meeting. He's out of the DC area. That sounds like something that would be of an interest.
Definitely.
Also plan to do is to get it, not tonight, but to get into talking about hotels too as well, and about how they're different. I'm just getting into it myself, but willing to share once I get the information. The other thing too as well, if any of you want to present either something about that you're working on, or something you have questions about for the group, you can feel free to bring that forward too as well.
So currently, I'm actually in the process of analyzing a deal in Arizona, 266 unit, just to keep abreast on my underwriting skills.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would love to, I don't know, go over the numbers. Is that something you plan on looking into, or?
Well, we can do that. Just let me know ahead of time, and we can have a conversation about it, and you can run
Okay.
through is this one that you're actually looking to purchase, or just practicing on?
Well, I'm practicing / if it's a go, it's a go. Obviously, if the numbers work out, I can present it to my buyers and everything. And I got some people lined up who
Okay.
basically looking to, taking a C to a B. And then ultimately they said they also open to A property. So I'm excited about
Okay.
that. So yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. Just like I said, just let me know. The thing is, it might be dead by the time we meet next.
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah. Well,
but
yeah, true that. But it takes a minute, in terms of going over the numbers, making sure they correct. That's my thing. So I got a little time.
okay.
I believe. So yeah.
Let me ask a question. I'm trying to get an idea from the group where we have some time. So if each of you could explain what you're doing now, where you currently stand, and what you're looking to get out of the group too as well, because I want to find out where the skill sets are, so I can figure out what to bring to the table. Demetrius, could you go first?
Sure. So you want us to comment on what we're bringing to the table? What was the other ask?
Just really just talk about what you're currently doing now and what you're looking to get, what you're looking to do and what you look to get out of the group. That should probably be enough. I'm just trying to get a feel for
Yeah,
what sort of information I should bring to the group.
sure. Yeah, you and I have had some back and forth conversation about that, and
Yeah.
at the level that I'm at, I want someone that sees me as a value to their team, who can help them with whatever they're trying to do with locating properties, managing those properties, investing, but not so much on the investment side, but more on the bringing me alongside and showing me how these things are done and making me a part of their team, until which point I'm able to invest large sums of money, which is not currently the case. So that's kind of the relationship I'm looking for. Looking for someone that is already in the business, that has been doing this for some time, that has experience, and kind of knows where I'm at the level that I'm at, and is willing to sort of pay it forward and nurture the relationship with me to get me to where I need to be. So what I'm currently doing, I work for an organization that does analysis for new drugs coming into the government. So I'm an analyst by day, and I have sort of an analytical background, public health, epidemiology, and population family health. So it's not related to what we're doing, but there's a piece of that that speaks to analysis and being critical, asking questions, and not taking no for an answer, and the transferable skill sets from what I do day to day that will translate and relate to the business of investment in managing property. I'm very meticulous. I'm very methodical. I follow through. So I'm that person that is the one that's going to cross T's and dot I's on the team that I join. So those are hard skills that I bring to the table, and I'm very loyal and committed as well. And I was having a conversation with someone the other day about this, and I told her that ideally I'd like to be working on a project where I don't have to raise rents on people, and that would be ideal. But I know the market doesn't. Usually it can't. You have to raise rents because other costs have gone up in other areas, and in order to defray some of those costs, you as a property owner have to raise rents in order to collect the difference. But ideally, I'd like to be able to do that. I know there are big groups out there that are building, a number of homes in cities where they are charging minimal rent just so that people can have the opportunity, or they're selling those homes, make sure that people can have the opportunity to be homeowners. So I'm looking at this from that perspective, not to constantly raise rent on people every year to make money, but how can I be of value to society and to the culture, really, to make home ownership or being able to live in a house more affordable, and for a place that people can call their own, and not necessarily be concerned about rent increases every year. So that's it.
I actually have a couple questions for you. One of the things
Sure.
about and so questions and a couple of comments. Well, one of the comments is, if you're looking to get into that, you can always get into affordable housing, and there are abilities to get in that side on the apartment, on the multifamily side too as well, if that's what your focus is. But the thing is, you got to think about too, is looking at what I call just the normal value add process is what it's called, is when you go into a property and you look at a property where you can fix it up and raise the rents, not because you're just doing it to do it, you're doing it because they're under the market value that you can charge for them. So it could be bad management or property management they have, bad asset management. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. So if I wouldn't look at it as in you're raising property, I haven't seen somebody do that, because if they do, people are just going to move. So they're raising it up, they're fixing up and raising it up to market rents for the areas. The question I have for you is, I know you did sales for a while too as well, right?
Yeah, you and I met when I was in sort of the tail end of my medical device business when we were living over here. And by the way, I actually bought a townhome over here in Merrifield, Charles, in
Oh, okay,
2020. So, they built some
okay.
townhomes around the corner of Mosaic that are considered to be in the Mosaic district. But at some point, they started building some homes across the street on Eskridge, where the old tennis complex used to be in 2019. So when
I
I
know you're
moved
talking
back
about.
here, yeah, when I moved back here in 20, I was living in one of the apartments across the street in Mosaic for a couple of months, and you know, sort of decided I didn't want to spend any more money paying rent, so I ended up buying right across the street at the townhouse. So yeah, you and I met around 2011 ish, and I was doing medical device sales for Cook Medical at that point, doing stints with cardiothoracic surgeons in the area and vascular surgeons, sort of running around the Beltway and hustling every day. And then I decided to go back to grad school in 2012 when I left the area to get my public health epidemiology degree, and now I'm working in that field. So that's what I was doing. So I do have an extensive kind of sales background for over a decade, 13 plus years. So I know how to talk to people. I know how to sell the features and benefits of something, sell against something, pros and cons. So there are lots of skill sets that I bring to the table that would be attractive, I believe, to the right group of people. It's just a matter of that group or an individual seeing who I am and is willing to take that, nurture and build upon it.
I agree with you, but the main reason I asked you that is because, as I was saying, there are three main areas in multifamily: asset management, acquisitions, and capital raising. And now, with your background, you could probably sales background and also network. You could probably step into the capital raising side pretty quickly.
Yep.
And to be honest with you, anybody dealing with multifamily would see that as a benefit.
Okay, that's good to know.
And so something to think about, because then you would just be speaking to them about something a little different about how multifamily helps them in their portfolio. But the other side, since you can probably play any role you wanted, to be honest with you, but I would suggest pick the one that you like the best, and focus on that, and come at somebody from that aspect of adding value to them. Like I said,
Mhm.
you could always get on the acquisition side, which is more analytical, and understanding the properties, going through and measuring them against other properties in the area, doing that analysis, and then looking at where you think the property is going to go over a 5-year period of time, if it's a 5-year hold,
Mhm.
which all requires you to be analytical, which you can do that too as well.
Yep.
And
And my
and then
comment about like, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was just saying, and on the asset management side, it's more of a project management sort of role. That's kind of an equivalent, because you're actually managing the property alongside of the property manager. You're actually managing the property manager, but you're managing budgets too as well. So that's why I said you can probably fit in any of those, but I would pick the one that you like. To be honest with you, pick the one
Yeah.
that you like,
Yeah, I've
and
done. Yeah, I've done project management now, going into my fourth year officially.
okay.
And my comment earlier about the possibility of taking on a multifamily unit and dealing with rent increases really wanted to speak to the fact that there's got to be a way that people can sustain themselves in a structure, especially if their income's not going up with the cost of living every year. And that's kind of a known fact. So my idea is to address that somehow, where housing is affordable to the degree that if there are increases, it doesn't impact everyone the same way. And who can afford the increase will, and who can't. But maybe there's more to think about with that. But that's kind of the space that I want to be in, and I'm thinking of is how do we make housing more affordable to people without these astronomical rent increases every year. And I get what you're saying about if you upgrade properties, you can then, afford to increase rents because the properties are now more modern and they're coming up to the market, what the market will demand. That's great. But I also want to make sure that people can afford to stay in that property for as long as they can, and that the increases are commensurate with any potential increase in their income or not. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, but see, what I was getting at is that when the rents are raised, it would be shooting themselves in the foot to raise it above and beyond the market rents. So
Right.
that's called a value add deal. And so most of the time, the what I've seen typically is anywhere between 200 and 300. Something above that is I haven't seen a whole lot of that. That means that there's been a situation where you have really poor management and who knows nothing about the market. So
Right.
the thing is that you also have to remember in all these situations, you have an investor you have to appease too as well. So
Right.
so the way it works is that by raising the income, you raise the value of the property, which then means that you can pay out more to your investors. So that link is always going to be there. So if you're dealing with investors, they're going to want to know what you're doing to give them back the return that you told them that you were going to give them.
Right. Yeah. So
So
So that whole idea is, what I'm trying to challenge. And I know that at my level, I don't have the wherewithal or the wealth or the finance or resources to be able to challenge that. But what you just said, I think, is something that needs to be challenged in order to effectuate, what we've seen with housing costs that have skyrocketed over the decades. So to me, it's
right.
going to take a group of investors who have that core ethos to understand what I'm talking about and figure out a way to make housing affordable that's sustainable over longer periods of time, not necessarily thinking about profits per se as the bottom line, but going in thinking, how can we make this affordable to people over 10, 20, 30 decades? Because really, this is impacting probably African Americans more than anyone else. So that's the kind of thing that I'm thinking about, a group of people who would be thinking that way from the beginning.
Like I said,
Can,
there's
can
always
I
the
say
important.
something?
Yeah, go
Sure.
ahead.
Yeah. Hey, Demetrius. Hey, I got into apartment investing with the
Yeah.
same premise because I've actually been in apartments. I had a life situation occur, and I can't get into all of it right now. And I said, wow, I know about apartment investing. I know why you have to raise rents, but it actually happened to me. And it happened to me in such a way as what you're talking about, where I was basically taking care of a family member, couldn't work, had to take care of them. They
Yeah.
passed away. And then, now I'm scruffing around trying to find a place of employment. Meanwhile, rent's going up and they're not giving me a chance to
Right.
renew my lease and all that stuff. Here's the deal. So what I determined to do, since I understand the valuation or the value add for apartment investing, I think what we may have to do is look for other asset classes to do what you're saying. It may not can be in the apartment space. You understand what I'm saying? Because again, like
Right.
Charles was saying, yeah, you got investors involved, and going into an apartment, just changing management companies basically adds value to the property. All you got to do is
Right.
change management, and that adds value to the property.
Yeah.
So obviously, and then the rent increases. If you look at it on paper, people, you'll see that it's a step up. It's like it should be a tier step up, like $10, $25, $25 on a specific unit size can increase astronomical on the bottom line, but not so much on the apartment
individual
itself.
unit.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I see
my
what you're
thought is
saying. You
yeah,
spread out the cost of increases over hopefully a larger number of apartments
yeah,
at a very, very minimum rate. And someone that experiences a 10, 15, $25 increase in their rent is probably not going to squawk about that
right.
because you're increasing, nominal amounts to everyone versus someone comes and their lease agreement or renewal is, $50 to $100
Right.
extra. Now, that's going to be a problem. So instead of doing that, but the thing is, you have to have a building that has a large number of units so that you can then increase by those smaller numbers and recoup that through the aggregate
Right.
of all those units versus just trying to increase heavily on one person at a time.
Right. Right.
And the reason why I'm coming at this like this is that I've been in situations, I know people that have and are in situations now where they're being, asked to pay a rent increase, man. And they can, their job is kind of shaky, they have family members, and that's kind of my perspective on the economy. I come from the small guy perspective who's struggled, who's been in situations that I know a lot of tenants have been in. So that's how I approach pretty much everything.
Right. Right. Yeah. Did I mention that I went through that situation? So
Yeah,
I'm right
I
there
heard you
with
say
you.
that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so you know exactly what I'm talking about. And
Right. Right.
sometimes you can talk to the leasing office and the manager at the time, the property manager, and try to get them. If you've been a great tenant and you've been there for a number of years, maybe they'll just give you a very small increase. But a lot of the times that's not the case.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It sounds
And the
like
thing is, I'm gonna just say this: I understand it from both standpoints. Now, that's the thing.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I understand it though. So
well, what I was saying
Okay.
is back to the same thing. You really should look at affordable housing because
Mhm.
with affordable housing, you can actually probably get government subsidies to help offset those increases.
Right.
So, and there's people who do just that.
Okay. That's a good point.
Yeah, so that's what I was getting at. Is I was just saying the difference between the two is that if you're with affordable housing, if I remember correctly, I think in some cases you have stipulations on how much you can raise the rent over a period of time. Now you still work with investors, but you're giving them a lower return than what you would if you were dealing with someone who's dealing with doing higher increases on an apartment that wasn't in the affordable area.
Right.
Well, let me move on to Keith and give you a chance to talk to as well about your background, what you're doing, and what you want to get out of the group because we're getting close up on towards the end of time.
you said you wanted someone else to go. I didn't hear you what you said.
Yeah, I wanted you to go.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So basically, yeah, my name is Keith Crockett. I actually knew Charles from a while back. We went through some earlier investing experiences. I cut my teeth on residential. I also was licensed in the Maryland, D.C. area. And so during that time, I actually entered the foray of commercial investing with apartments. One specific instance, I had sent out a mailing and almost had at that time, it was like a 4-unit in the Southeast DC area. But I learned quickly on that one deal that you probably want to steer clear of DC because they have what's called a TOPA law. But basically, the tenant has the first right of refusal as to when a seller can sell an apartment. So he has to go to the tenants to let them know, hey, I'm intending to sell. Do you all, is that way y'all can raise the funds to purchase the property, and you can see how that, basically he has to give them time, and you can see how that can stretch out. So really quickly, you learn that DC is not necessarily landlord friendly. So you want to stay in landlord friendly states
And I'm not trying to be political right here, but it seems like mostly
Yeah.
red states are your states that are landlord friendly. So I
Right.
learned all of that on that one deal. And I went back into residential, but then I had gained a lot of information and knowledge about commercial. So here I am back, full force, going head of steam. Like I said, for the same reason Demetrius was just talking about. But even as he's talking, I realized that, yeah, like I said, you were mentioning, Charles, the affordable housing space, and that's what I meant by maybe a different asset class might have to be
Right.
considered to, for that situation. So, but yeah, I'm in apartment investing full fledged. I'm getting my private presentations packages worked out, and I'll be raising money and all of it. So I'm here to network with everybody, anybody serious about doing this. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm loving what you got going on here, Charles.
Oh, great. Jakisha, you want to give us a little bit of your background and what you're looking to get out of the group?
Yes, hello. My name is Jaquisha Stokes. I am an accountant and I work in the DMV area for the government. I am fairly a newbie investor. I only have one property currently, in Maryland, PG County. I actually came across the apartments investing group through another mastermind student, Teresa. Had brunch with her a couple months ago. She told me about the group and I decided to join. And as a newbie investor, I never really considered skipping over like just residential and going straight to commercial apartment investing until
Mhm.
she told me about, her investments and her investing in hotels also, which kind
Okay.
of blew my mind. And so I decided to join the group. And currently, I'm just trying to learn everything I can. I've been reading books. I got Mike's Broke to Millions book. I want to learn how to do deal analysis and, be a deal finder. I'm pretty shy when it comes to networking, but I understand that real estate is a networking game. And again, like you said, your network is your net worth. So I got to
Right.
get out of, my comfort zone and meet new people, network. And I guess I'm just attending every webinar, every meetup that I can go to and just try to learn. Also, I'm, kind of interested in maybe a mentee mentorship. Um, but my ultimate goal with apartment investing is to build financial freedom, and to get away from the 9 to 5 job. And I have some other goals. Um, after I gain financial freedom, I know like Demetrius talked about affordable housing. I've kind of been thinking about maybe mixed housing or like mixing affordable housing within higher priced apartments. So that's
Right.
something I've in the future, but again, I'm still new, so I'm just trying to get into the game.
Okay. So it sounds like you've kind of picked a lane and you want to do more of the acquisition side.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's a good part to be in. Do you have a calculator that you use?
Um, I've kind of been looking at different calculators and analyzers, so I haven't really settled on anything. Again, I've been talking to different real estate investors. Like I've been going to some meetups in the DMV area, so I've kind of gotten some different ones, and I'm not quite sure again because I'm new. So I'm just kind of experimenting, but I feel like I need more knowledge or, someone who's more knowledgeable than me to just kind of, I guess, understand the calculators more.
At Michael Blank's?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Have you looked at Michael Blank's calculator?
I don't think so, but let me write that down.
Yeah, because he does he's a mentor and a coach too as well, but he also sells a calculator outside of that. And if I remember right, he also provides you instruction on how to use it too as well. And that's the one that we used in the last deal that we worked on.
Okay.
The other thing is, as far as you talk about networking, are you free at noon most days?
Actually, no, I'm typically at work, and because I work for the government, I don't
Right.
have access, like, to my cell phone and stuff when I'm in the building. So when
Oh, okay.
I typically it's the new networking sections.
When it works out as far as time frame, as far as time is concerned, then.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I was saying, because what I'm probably gonna end up doing is reaching out to some other people I know too as well to come in and help. And if because there's someone else I know who is, and what's his name? I think it's Jason Williams, if I remember right. Are you on LinkedIn?
Yes, I am.
Uh Jason Williams, he's out of, I think, somewhere in Texas, but he has a class on underwriting.
Okay.
So that might be of interest to you as well. And if you want, you can just send me an email and I can give you his contact information through LinkedIn, and you can reach out and see if it's something you want to do.
All right. Yes, I will definitely send you an email.
Yeah, because that's the easiest way. But I think what you're doing right now, as far as trying to get to networking events at the times that you can, is probably the easiest. But one of the things I would tell you is, don't waste your time looking at deals assuming that you're going to find the money for it. I would be looking to reach out to other syndicators who are out there and look in areas that they're looking for and look to bring deals to them, because most likely they're going to have someone on the other side or have ways to get access to the funds to support the deal that you're looking at.
Okay. All righty. Thank you. That is very helpful.
Problem. But so as a group continues to grow, well, I guess I was wondering, is want to ask a question of all of you. Would having a networking component to this as well be something that you would be interested in?
Yes, I would be interested in networking. Yes.
Keith, you guys there?
I'm saying, like, hey, yeah, hey, Charles, repeat your question again. I didn't hear you.
I said, would you be interested in a networking component to this group?
Oh, definitely, yeah,
Because
yes. What do you mean by that? What would that consist of?
well, the one I was probably mimic some of the ones I'm in during the week, but essentially what happens is that there's a way you can break out into smaller rooms, and you would go into the room and basically go through kind of what you did here today with us here, what you're looking at, and give you a little bit, be prepared to do it. There's not going to be a format, but you just go over what you're looking at. I would suggest what you do, what you're looking at, and what your key pain points are. Those are the three things that I would cover, because
Gotcha.
if you cover those three things, people know how they can kind of figure out how you fit into their organization by what you're talking about. And if you discuss your pain points, you'll find out that people will be willing to help you. I always say, is one thing you need to do is, if you have something you want, ask for it. Don't be afraid to ask for it, no matter how silly it may sound.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah,
I'll give
I
you
would
I'll
definitely
give you
appreciate that.
yeah, I'll give you my personal example for myself. Is I had a situation where I've been networking for a while in these different groups and things, and came completely clear to me that I need to have a loan guarantor. So I just started asking for it, and I found a loan guarantor up to 20 million and one from 20 to 30 million. just by asking. I suggest that in these meetup groups that you ask, because you never know who's in them.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm definitely open to that. Yeah.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll work, if you know of anybody out there who's interested in apartment investing and hotel investing, just invite them to the group and have them register just like you registered. And they'll get an email just like I sent to you when the next meeting comes up. But I think for right now, what I'll go ahead and do is start off with a presentation of some sort. And then at the end of that meeting, then have some networking, maybe be a half an hour, 45 minutes. So I'll change the time of the meeting from 8 to 9 to 8 to 9:30 to start with and see how that goes. Other things too, as well, as I've got all your email addresses. So if I come across something that I think would be good for the group to know, I'll gladly share that too as well.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. And one other thing too as well, you might get you might get some financial information too as well, as far as that, if I come across some things. I have another group that I deal with that's a financial mastermind that talks about financial things as well. So if there's anything that I think pertains to what we're doing here, I'll share that as well.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, I hope everybody's doing well. And again, the thing is if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And if I don't know, I probably know somebody who does know.
Okay, thank you for this session. It was very informational, and I'm gonna shoot you an email about the underwriting class.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, hope everybody has a good week, and I'll talk to you if not, if you don't hear from me in during the period of time, I'll talk to you when the next one we have in a month.
All right. Thanks, Charles.
All right.
Thanks, Charles.
No problem.
Have a
Take
good
care.
night.
Good
You
night,
too.
everyone.